Welcome to this edition of the Locker Room Chat, brought to you by the Shanneman Sports Museum of Tacoma, Pierce County, and Rainier Asphalt and Concrete, the #1 asphalt and concrete repair contractor in Tacoma and the Seattle area. For quality workmanship and top-notch customer service, contact Rainier Asphalt at rainierasphalt.com and let them know you heard about them on Locker Room Chat. I'm Gary Hill, and today we have a very special guest with us, a Tacoma legend and no doubt one of the best third basemen in baseball history, Ron Cey. Ron, it's great to have you here. Thanks for taking the time. We appreciate it. Well, I want to go back to your childhood growing up in Tacoma. Was Major League Baseball always something you strive for? Was that always in your mind as a goal?
I grew up in the boys club, South Tacoma Boys Club, South End Boys Club. I think the director over there, his name was Don Danielson at the time. And, it was a place for us to go and play. And I think I was over there at a very early age, probably 3-7, when my dad took me over there and pushed me through the front door and said, "I'll pick you up at 4 o'clock." And from there, I met a lot of kids and got involved with all kinds of different sports, learned how to play. And I remember a day on the backfield, the main field, probably at 10 o'clock in the morning Saturday game. And it was, maybe 70 degrees in the springtime. And it was just a beautiful day, and I said to myself in the batter's box, I said, "Wouldn't this be great if I could do this every single day?" And I still remember that. It's as vivid as anything I have as a memory. And that was my childhood dream. That's where it kind of started right there. I wanted to become a Major League Baseball player, and I was willing to sacrifice, as time went on. All the obstacles, I was willing to be challenged by it, and it was a very interesting journey for me. I played all those sports. I was good enough to play all the sports back then. I wasn't the best player on my team when I first started out, but I eventually got there. So yeah, it was a great time. I met a lot of lifelong friends growing up in the boys club, and I grew up in the same boys club with Bobby Moore, who is Ahmad Rashad today. And so, got to play against all the kids throughout the city, kids from the downtown boys club, and all black, pretty much an all black boys club downtown at that time. And so that was an experience too, going down there and playing with some of those kids. You get a chance to see what their side of life is about, and very educational for me.
And at the time, the Tacoma Giants were playing at Cheney Stadium, and they had so many future Hall of Famers going through Tacoma. Did that have an impact on you growing up, watching the Giants play?
Big one, very big one. I think Cheney Stadium was built like maybe 58, 1960, something like that. Farm club with the San Francisco Giants. I saw compliments of my Uncle Don. Mostly, he would take me to games, random games, and I got to see the likes of Tom Haller, Juan Marichal, Gaylord Perry, Jim Ray Hart, Chuck Hiller, Willie McCovey passed through there briefly, Bob Perry. There's some Jose Pagan, so many players that passed through there. The Alou brothers too, I think a few of them. There was an exhibition game that was played. I don't recall which year. But my favorite player was and always has been Willie Mays. And I was able to see him play in this game. And he hit a ball off the Green Monster in center field that went for a triple. And he didn't play the whole game, of course. But we also had a player from local Clover Park, Cap Peterson, who was a Giant, a teenage phenom back in the day. And he had a brief career as well. And of course, Ben Cheney and all his philanthropic work, all his sponsorships for kids sports, his name in the lumber company. He helped build the stadium. It's named after him. He was a 10% owner, I think, in the San Francisco Giants, minority stockholder or whatever. And Ben was always a big person, as it turned out in my life. Later, when I was graduating from high school, my first year at Washington State as a freshman, I played for the Cheney Studs that went to the AABC World Series, Stan Musial World Series 2 years in a row. And Ben was also very disappointed with the San Francisco Giants that the Dodgers ended up signing me.
Well, you mentioned your idol being Willie Mays. You got to tell us about the first time you played against Willie Mays.
Oh, well, this was, I was one of those kids in hog heaven. And here I am in the major leagues playing an exhibition game in St. Petersburg, Florida. It was the spring training site of the Cardinals and the Mets. And it was a game that was played in the daytime, and I was playing third base, and Willie Mays now comes up, and the very first pitch that he sees, he hits a line drive right to me for the third out of the first inning. And so I didn't give the ball up. I don't know exactly what I did with it. I think I went back into the clubhouse and put the ball in my bag. I don't know what happened to it after that. All I do know is that I was more than thrilled. And later in the season, of course, he was finishing his career with the Mets. And we're playing a game at Shea Stadium, and he hits a home run. And he's circling the bases, and he's coming around to third base, and I'm putting my glove kind of up in my throat saying, my idol is circling the bases here. I would love to be able to just shake his hand on the way around. And I didn't do it, but I wanted to. And, over the years, Willie and I have become friends, and I do have a picture of he and I that is signed. And I will briefly go to that for a second. There were, I would say, maybe a few years ago, we had the celebration up in San Francisco. I think it was the 60th, probably 4 years ago, 60th anniversary of the Dodgers and the Giants coming west. Mm. And so they were ready to throw a little bit of a party on the field, and the Giants were playing the Dodgers in San Francisco at the new park. And so we had a little special day. We had some people from the Giants there, from the Dodgers. And I had taken this picture that I mentioned because I hadn't had it signed. And so I took it up there in hopes that I would run into Willie. And it turns out that one of the clubhouse guys that was in our era of baseball was still working for the club. And when I got there, he said, "Come on, we're going to go over to see Willie. He's here." When I had told him that you wanted to see him, he wasn't planning on coming to the game. But since you were coming to the game, he is here because you were here. Wow. So I got to go over there and spend about 20 minutes with him and his aide to help him get around. And he did sign the picture, and I reminded him that he was my favorite player, and he laughed. And so it was quite a thrill for me, honestly. I cherished that moment. I had an opportunity to watch this person grow as a professional player in the early parts of his career, to eventually play against him and then become friends with him. Very special.
That's incredible. Too, while you were talking too, I was picturing little kid Ron Say at Cheney Stadium and watching the Tacoma Giants and watching Gaylord Perry pitch. And if I would have told little kid Ron Say watching Gaylord Perry that in a few years, you'll be playing in a major league all-star game facing Gaylord Perry and getting your first All-Star hit off of Gaylord Perry. What would little kid Ron Cey have said to that?
Yeah, just living a dream. At the time, here I am, my second year. I'm the starting third baseman in the All-Star game in Pittsburgh. And Gaylord Perry, who I watched as a kid pitch in Tacoma, I get to face him, and I end up hitting a double to the left center field that drove in the first round of the game, and that was quite a thrill. And Juan Marichal in 1975 actually became a Dodger for a short period of time. So I got to watch Juan Marichal pitch. He wasn't in Tacoma very long. I think he was 5-0 with like a 0 ERA, and they called him up. That was that for that. And to later hitch up with Juan for a brief period of time, it was, and that's pretty special stuff for a kid that carried that with him. It was just great. I mean, it was just, it's hard to explain now that I'm looking back on it. I don't visit this spot very often. So, Gary, thanks for bringing that up.
What do you remember about your Mount Tahoma days?
Well, I was essentially going over to a brand new high school. It was only, I think, 2-3 years old by the time that I got there, maybe. And I was reuniting with the kids that I grew up with at South End Boys Club and Baker Junior High School. So I went to Fern Hill, I went to Park Avenue. And I was really kind of scheduled to go to Baker Junior High School, but I went to Stewart. And so I met new kids that most of those kids went to Lincoln. And for some reason, I got kind of persuaded to go back to, the roots. And so I reunited with the kids at Baker and Gray Junior High. They migrated to Tahoma High School, and I had some friends over there. So, we were a new upstart high school. Lincoln was the proud established one. And, I just wanted to try something different. I had a lot of friends over there, and I thought it'd be a lot of fun. So I actually now knew kids, the majority of the kids at Mount Tahoma and Lincoln. So that was, it was a social thing too.
And of course, your baseball career took off. I imagine you were getting a lot of Ron Santo comparisons in those days.
You must have read my mind. I think it was, 15 or 16 years old. I was playing in a state tournament, and that we had some local games at Heidelberg Park. And there was an article written. I don't know exactly why it was written about me, but it was more or less like this could be the next Ron Santo. And so I said that was really cool. Ron Santo is, got his career going with the Cubs. Great start to it. But I got some unfinished business. I'm not in high school yet. I don't know where this road is going to go. But yeah, that's cool. Well, the comparisons between Ron Santo are mirror-like for our careers. And Ron Santo, of course, was posthumously awarded a place in the Hall of Fame. And I have the rings. And so I think it's the comparison and the actuality, the factual aspect of it is that it came as close as I possibly could, I think, as making that article become a fact. And it pretty much is. But on my way, when I was in Spokane, I was voted the state's top minor league player of the year. And there was an award session up in Seattle, and I was asked to attend, and I did. And the person who awarded me with this plaque was Ron Santo. So our paths crossed. We both wore number 10. We're both from the same state. We both have the first same name. both played third base. I eventually played with the Cubs, and he and I became friends. He was one of our radio broadcasters, and when he would come to Dodger Stadium with the Cubs over the years, I would always go up and visit with him when it was appropriate. So that's another story that goes along with something that crossed paths in my life.
That's amazing. Well, from Mount Tahoma, it was to Washington State. How influential was that time with the Cougars in your baseball career?
Well, it was very influential because we had the Vietnam War series. And when I did graduate from high school, I was drafted by the New York Mets. And the scout in the area was the head coach at Wilson High School, named Marv Scott. And Marv came to the house and made his pitch. And I'm not sure what Marv could have offered at the time that would have gotten me to go, because the Vietnam War was staring us in the face, and I didn't have any protection. I had to have I believe it was a 2S classification, something like that. I can't remember exactly. But I had to be in school. I had to be productive. So my scholarship at Washington State was always there. And Chuck Bobo Brayton was the one who talked me into going over there. But I also had some really good friends who were part of the program over there too. Skip Gillis, who went to Mount Tahoma High School, and Rick Austin, who went to Lakes. And we all played for the Cheney Studs. And so it was an easy call. And as a matter of fact, my freshman year, we were scheduled to be on campus, but we had this AABC World Series to play in Battle Creek, Michigan. And Rick and Skip and I were all there, and they were Phi Delts over there. And so I ended up snap pledging the fraternity. And we got there late, but these guys spoke highly of me, and I had other people in the fraternity as well that were high school friends. So we had a bond thing going. But yeah, my time at Washington State, we had freshman eligibility only. So I had to play freshman baseball there. We only played about 20 games. And then in the summertime, I went home and played for the Cheney Studs, and we got probably another 40 games or so in there. Got to go to Alaska, play the Gold Panners, who were a team that was comprised of UCLA, USC, and Stanford players, and they had a terrific team. And we were also very competitive, and they ended up being the runner-up national champions in the NBC bracket of amateur baseball. And we were the runner-ups in the AABC World Series. So two very competitive teams, and we matched up very well the next year when we were on the varsity. We actually beat both USC and Stanford, and we did not have regional play back then. We were 8th ranked in the country. We had 3 teams in the top 10, and only one team was going to be able to go forward and get an automatic berth, and that was USC, and they ended up winning the national championship.
Wow. And as far as I understand the story, it was Bobo Brayton that gave you the Penguin nickname. Is that right?
It is correct, yeah. Bobo was an ambassador of college baseball. He had a terrific success at Washington State. Been to the College World Series, I believe, a few times, won over 1,000 games. I gave him one of my jerseys framed and signed years later that I believe is still residing somewhere in that Brayton house over there, just off the campus of Pullman, Washington. But he was a good friend. He tried very hard to talk me into staying another year, but it was time for me to go. That was the plan. And of course, I eventually, to protect myself, ended up getting into a reserve unit in Tacoma and doing my active duty, and that was my protection.
Is that a nickname that you embraced? Because it is one of the great nicknames in baseball history. Everyone knows you when they hear the nickname. It's It's unique and
It's flattering, yeah.
names,
I had a nickname in high school too, from football, Scooter, and I took that to college. So I had a few nicknames. But the one that Bobo gave me, stuck professionally. And when Tom sort of saw me for the first time, which was 1969, or actually I met him in construction wing in Arizona, Mesa, Arizona. We send all our top prospects over there. It's the Arizona Fall League today.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's when he started calling me the Penguin. And so, yeah, now it was going to stick. And actually, this was years ago. Someone told me that ESPN had done a baseball name contest, name your favorite name player. And somebody told me that I finished 7th all time. There's a lot of great names. I didn't think that I would make the top 10 on that, but apparently I did. Yeah, it was, you got to say, hey, kid, Willie Mays. I mean, there's a lot of great players that had nicknames, and it probably should have come Hammer and Hank Aaron. And I got to play in Henry's game that he broke Babe Ruth's all-time home run record in 1974. And it was a similar case with him coming around the bases, and they had 2 kids chasing him. Somehow they got on the field, and I wanted to shake his hands too, but I did not get to do that. But the Braves were in town the following week, and I took 2 balls and 2 posters over to the Atlanta clubhouse, and I sat in his little cubicle for 5 minutes waiting for him to come in. And I told him, I said, Henry, I'm not going anywhere until you sign these pictures and balls for me. He says, no problem. I've got so many crazy stories. Just a little direction or a little name or a little sequence of something, pushes me over here. So yeah, I've got all these things stored in the back of my head. I forget that they're in there sometimes until I get this little spark of a reminder.
I can't imagine being on the field for that moment. That was such an incredible moment, not only baseball history, but American history.
Well, it was early in the season. It was the first week of the season. We knew that Henry was, like 2 away, I think. And he opened up the season, I believe, in Cincinnati. He hit like a home run opening day. And I'm saying, oh, my God, we're going in next. We're going to Atlanta next. I don't want him to break this record. I don't want it to happen. I want it to be against us. So, it's like he heard me. And so he says, I want to break this at home, because apparently they had maybe a 10-day homestand after they started on the road. And we were the first ones in, and now he's tied. Tied with, Babe Ruth. And so, here we are. I think we're on Monday Night Baseball or something. And it's a nationally televised game, if I'm not mistaken. And here we are. And Henry Aaron, hits this home run that Tom House catches in the bullpen in left field. And Bill Buckner almost killed himself trying to climb the fence to catch it. And so now, we have like a 30-minute delay, and they make the presentation, and it was quite a night. It was special, very, very special. The most historical game I ever played.
Yeah, no doubt. I was thinking about your career too. You had so many incredible moments. One that I think about too was when you were with the Dodgers in 1977, the playoffs against the Phillies.
Right.
You hit this is backyard stuff. You hit a grand slam to tie a playoff game at Dodger Stadium. What do you remember about that moment?
I remember Steve Carlton, who was pitching, and Steve, of course, one of the premier pitchers in the game. I think 1972, he won 27 games, a Hall of Famer. And he's cruising along, but he's in trouble here in the 7th inning. We've got 2 outs, and I got 2 strikes, and I'm fouling off this. And finally had a pitch, and I buried it in the left field pavilion. I'm running around the bases, and between first and second, I honestly thought there was an earthquake. The place was shaking, and it's the only time that I ran up around the bases like that where it was shaking like that. It actually made me think of something else while I'm running around the bases. And when I got the home plate, of course, this is the first Grand Slam home run in National League Championship Series history. And so not the fifth one or the fourth one or the 10th one, but the first one. And then Dusty Baker followed me the next day with a home run, a Grand Slam home run. So we're 1-2. But we lost that game that I hit a home run in. And usually, those games, even though you did great, they don't quite feel the same way. Yeah. So I would have been in seventh heaven if that would have been, a victory. But I ended up getting left in the on-deck circle that night. We ended up losing in the ninth inning, and it was a tough loss. But fortunately for us, we rebounded. We swept the remaining 3 games, and we're off to our first World Series.
Your description of that moment.
I take that back. Our second World Series.
Yeah. Your description of that moment is perfect because you look at the video and Dodger Stadium is going wild. And it's fun to look at the broadcast again because Vin Scully, he delivers it perfectly. He goes, "They want say, and there's nothing more for me to say," and just leaves it. And the crowd is just going wild. I just can't imagine living in that moment.
Yeah.
Tell me about the 81 Dodgers and winning that World Series.
It was kind of a strange year to begin with. Here we are. We feel like, we're back and healthy, ready to do it again. We've got the longest running and most successful infield in Major League history. By fact, I'm not going to tell you that we're the greatest infield of all time, but certainly one of them. We had the first 30 home run foursome in Major League history. Excuse me. And so we are, I think that 1981 team, every member of the starting lineup was an all-star, multi-time all-star. The entire outfield, the infield many times over. We had Cy Young Award winners. We had MVPs. We had rookies of the year. And eventually we would have World Series MVPs coming out of that, me being one of them. I was also able to win the Babe Ruth Award for that performance in the World Series. And I think we were just a team of destiny. It was our time. We overcame issues. We had a strike in mid-season. We didn't know how that was going to play out. But the one thing that we wanted to make sure of is that, excuse me, can we cut this for just a second? Can we stop this? Because I have to I've got some phlegm in my throat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can we hold it right there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ready to roll again?
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
So we didn't know exactly where that issue was going to stop and start again. And the only thing that we knew that we needed to accomplish is to be in first place. We wanted to be atop of the leaderboard when that happened, because at least, against anything else that could come up, we're still in first place. When we return, how we return, whatever. So it turns out after 2 months, we return and they have a new set of rules. We're going to have a first half and a second half. And we are already in the playoffs. We don't have to worry about our performance the second half or the last month and a half or so of the season. So all we're concerned with is priming ourselves to, be ready in the moment. We don't have to stress out like these other clubs do to make sure that they win. Because if we'd have won both first and second half championships, they still would have had to throw a team in there. So it just didn't matter. And so it turns out that I got hit by a pitch and I broke a bone in my arm first week of September. And I was not sure whether I'd be able to return for the playoffs. But I did a little magic. I spoke to my wrist a lot. We had many conversations saying, yeah, we really need to speed this process up. I need you to be healthy in another 3 weeks. And everybody thought I was nuts, of course. But I remember walking into Dr. Curlin and Dr. Job's office. It was about the time that it was necessary for them to see healing in the break. So that meant calcium in the line of the break, as I'm told. And I walked back past Dr. Curlin's office and peeked in when he was there. I said, this thing's coming off for good. And it was my cast. And he said, I hope you're right. And as it turned out, it was. And then I had another obstacle. We had to win the first round of the playoffs without me. I wasn't eligible for that. So we were able to come from two games down against Houston and Nolan Ryan and swept that series. And then we were going to face Montreal, of which we did. And then we are back into, then I'm back in and playing again. And I hadn't played in over a month. I didn't have a rehab. It was like I'm cold turkey. So my first time up, I doubled, drove in the first run, got a base hit. Later on, we win this game. And then we eventually lose 2 games to Montreal. And now we're faced with, a do or die situation. And we were able to have Fernando Valenzuela pitch a great game in the final game of that series. And Rick Monday hit a big home run in the 8th or 9th inning of that game to give us a 2-1 victory. And next night we're in New York, and here we are. So we're playing the Yankees right away, and we go 2 games down. And now we're back in Los Angeles, and I have a big game in Game 3 that gets us back in it. Big defensive play, big home run. We battle back. We had 3 one-run games in that series, and Game 5, I get beamed by Goose Gossage, and I'm down. And I have a concussion, and I fell in slow motion at home plate. And all the CAT scans and MRIs turned out to be okay. But if I was under today's protocol, concussion protocol, I'm history. It's done. But fortunately for me, we didn't have that. It was left up to me, and we got a 1-game delay in New York because of weather. That was enough to make me feel quite a bit better. But I did have busy spells for about a month, and ended up getting a game-winning hit in that game. I remember Tom Lasorda following me around like a shadow dog, wanting to know if I'm okay. He showed me the lineup that night. 4th spot was open, and he says, "I'm waiting on you." And I said, "Look, I haven't taken any. I got a new helmet I got to try on now. I got to take batting practice, and I'll let you know." And he was following me around, and it felt like every minute he says, "How you feeling? How you feeling?" "I'm great. Leave me alone." "How you feeling? How you feeling?" "Great. Leave me alone." And finally, I just said, "Look, would you just go inside and let me take batting practice? And I'll pop my head in when I'm finished." And I was pretty sure everything was going along good. I passed all my own protocols. And he had a ton of writers in the office at Yankee Stadium when I came in, and I popped my head in the door, and I said, "We're good to go." So we go out there. I get a base hit my first time up. I think it was the 5th inning. I get a base hit up the middle, kind of a lucky base hit, caromed off, I think maybe the side of the base. I went into center field, so we took a lead. And then we broke it open, and then I came out of the game after that because I was feeling dizzy, and I didn't want to mess this up at all. And we were able to break it open even further, and so we came home with our world championship. And I was an MVP, and it was icing on the icing on the cake. It was the last game that the Fabled Infield would play together, and so it had a lot of historical values in it too. So yeah, it was a great moment for us. Finally, we were able to achieve what we felt we deserved previously.
And after so many battles against the Yankees, it had to be extra sweet to do it against them as well.
Well, you're right. It was. There's nothing like playing in Yankee Stadium, and, the old one. And the fact that it was 3 of the 4 years we played in the World Series were against the Yankees. It's unfortunate what happened in 1978 because we had that one interference call that if we had had instant replay back then, you would have seen the result of that series changing. And unfortunately, it didn't change in the better side for us. It was where the whole momentum of the series changed on this one play. Took victory right out of our grasp and taking a 3-1 lead to just turning and going the other direction. My worst loss in all of baseball.
You mentioned the infield. It's incredible. Say Russell, Lopes, Garvey, more than 8 seasons together. We have never seen anything like that in baseball. I think it's safe to say we will never see anything like that again. How do you describe that group?
Well, we were homegrown.
Yeah.
We all grew up in the system, which is another achievement beyond what we did. I was the only one who played the original position that I was signed as. Garvey was the third baseman. Lopes and Russell were outfielders, center fielders, and they were all converted to different positions. A very athletic group, very durable group. We played 150 games a year. We don't have a guy on our club playing 150 games anymore.
Yeah.
Think of that, by definition, we were the heart and soul of that team for all that time. We were the nucleus of that team. How comforting do you think it would be for Walter Alston and Tommy Lasorda to be able to go write up a lineup every single day? I don't think we would have been a very good team with the metric system that they have running baseball today. I think if you had a game where Dusty Baker or Reggie Smith in particular, let alone the rest of us, they would have been lined up outside of Tommy's door, a room, and knocking on the door saying, who is it that's playing tonight that's better than I am? It wouldn't have gone over well. But we had a very, very dedicated group of guys, winners that worked hard. They had great work ethics. We were determined to be one of those teams that was going to be recognized. And we had a great team that pushed us too, the Big Red Machine, and that was a great bunch by itself. How would you like to face these guys? Johnny Bench, Tony Perez, Joe Morgan, Davey Concepcion, Pete Rose, George Foster, Cesar Geronimo, and Ken Griffey Sr. Oh. That's a pretty good lineup.
It's a great lineup. I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, 1976 version of the Reds.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. How many times you were teammates with a lot of those Reds in all-star games. You, of course, were a 6-time all-star, including the 1979 game in Seattle. You came back home to be an all-star. What do you remember about that?
It was a very hot weekend. By growing up in the Northwest that your cars don't have air conditioners. Your homes don't have air conditioners. You don't have automatic sprinkler systems. You have, you turn it on and that whirly bird goes around. And it was 97 degrees, I believe. And there was no air. It was so overwhelmingly hot. There was no relief. And I had like 30 people who came up to Seattle from all over to go to the game. And it was quite a thrill to be back playing in the Kingdom. And that was certainly one that I wanted to. I'm saying, wow, here it is, Seattle. I gotta be in this All-Star game. I gotta go home and play in this All-Star game. And I was fortunate enough that we won every All-Star game that I played in. So we were the dominant league at the time.
And people have to remember, too, this was before interleague play, so you didn't get a chance to come home and play in front of friends.
Did not. No, did not. That I think over time I would have liked to, the only touch that we had with that was that when we came out of spring training, we would always have what's called the Freeway Series with the Angels. And that was our closest touch to having interleague play. And it was fun because, they had some great players over there too. Rod Carew was still over there. Nolan had pitched there. Jackson had played there. Bobby Grich was there. Bobby Grich was a terrific player. I don't think the Angels really have given him as much credit as he deserves. So he was one of the top players in our era. Everybody knew who Bobby Grich was. And along with Don Baylor and Roger Freed and some others. But and Ted Simmons also was a guy that caught everybody's attention back then too.
I have to ask you about your singing career.
Oh, of course.
And the 1976 song "Third Base Bag."
Yes. Jimmy Campanis, son of Al Campanis, our general manager, who also was a catcher in the big leagues, just came to me with this. He said, let's do a baseball song, jingle. Let's do a song. And it turns out it was playing the third base bag and one game at a time. And we recorded it. And it was in 1976 on Long Ball Records. And yeah, it's all funny. It's very funny. And I think we sold 30 worldwide, and I have 25 of them. Yeah. And these songs were played in spring training at Holman Stadium in Vero Beach every Sunday when we played at home. And so now, in between innings, here comes playing the third base bag, right? Or one game at a time. And I'm singing in between innings, and my wife and a group of people who came to spring training every year are sitting behind home plate, and there's an elderly couple sitting right behind them. And the lady behind them turns to her husband and says, "Honey, is that Glenn Campbell?"
Yeah.
So now my entire row of family breaks up laughing, and I've told that story many times. But yeah, Glenn Campbell. Can you imagine?
Congratulations. That's sensational.
Yeah. So yeah, it was. I still have CDs. There were, of course, the people who said, "Oh, I think he ought to stick to his day job, or night job, or whatever." And it's like, look, I didn't sing a ballad. It's just a baseball song. Don't get too serious. If you took it too serious, then you missed the point. It was just for fun.
That's great. You rang the NASDAQ bell too, right?
Yes, I did. I went back there and represented the Dodgers in the free agent draft in June, and was there with a lot of baseball dignitaries, Lasorda, Frank Robinson, Joe Torre, to name a few. It was nice to be able to do that. You get your 15 seconds of fame there during the draft where you get to walk up and introduce the player that you've drafted. You travel 5 hours to New York from LA. You are there all day sitting in a little table looking like you're busy when you're not. And you're there 8 hours and the thing closes at midnight and you're the last one on. And you're saying, okay, I traveled all this way. I spent all this time, and I get up there and I'm the last one on the docket. Here's my 15-second. And that's the end of the draft today, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in tomorrow. Yeah. So, yeah. And I was there actually the year that Lasorda had a heart attack during that period of time. So I had to do the whole thing. He and Bud Selig and Joe Torre were in the back room. He's trying to talk them into not having them take him to the hospital.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
What was it like playing for Tommy Lasorda?
He was a very gregarious person. He wore everything on his sleeve. He was hugging guys, telling stories, patting them on the back. Tommy and Walt were complete opposites in terms of, who they were. Tommy being very outgoing, Walt being kind of quiet and shy. But both of them did an outstanding job of managing the players and the team. And, Walt was also very instrumental in my growth as a player early. We had a few conversations that he gave a great deal of confidence to me in. And he was, I really enjoyed talking with Walt. He had a lot of respect for what I was doing, and he knew that, I had to be one of those guys that was going to be, determining our success.
So you played this game for a long time. You've been around this game for a long time. I know you must have a million stories. You've told a lot of them here. Do you have a favorite baseball story that you like to tell?
I've had a lot of things happen to me in the game. It's not just one event or, another. There were a lot of great things that happened. My history with the Dodgers, we had so many things go on during that period of time. We're the first team in Major League history that also took attendance to 3 million, which kind of gets lost in the shuffle of things that we accomplished. But, being a part of the infield, the longest running, most successful infield in Major League history, to be a part of the Major League foursome, home run foursome, 30 home run foursome, MVP World Series, Babe Ruth Award winner, Lou Gehrig Award winner. I tell, people all usually like to, know a Tom Lasorda story. And, Tommy used to get upset with me for signing the sweet spot on the ball. That's normally, designed for the manager of the team. And of course, when you have other people who don't know who they're going to run into, and you get a person who says, please sign on the sweet spot, sign on the sweet spot. So he'd always say, if later on he runs into this person with that same ball, he would say to me, Penguin, he says, why did you sign on the sweet spot? He says, don't you know I know you know that it's designated for the manager of the team. When did you manage? And I'm saying, well, I think I started in 1977. And then he takes this, kind of stare into nowhere, and he says, you didn't just say that, did you? He started managing in 1977. That's why I said 1977. And so he says, oh, so you're going to play it that way. And then there's the second part of that, which goes, Tommy, I'm one of those guys who got you into the Hall of Fame. So I'll sign that goddamn baseball wherever I want to. And of course, then he starts laughing. And I always tried to give him levity, make him smile and joke around about this stuff rather than taking it so serious. It's not that big a deal if you don't get to sign on the sweet spot. Yeah, okay, most of the time you do, but in certain cases I said, look, I can't help if the person wanted me to sign on the sweet spot. This is where it turned out. So don't have a heart attack over.
That's so great. And to bring this conversation full circle, and I know you still do work for the Dodgers, so you see Dodger fans all the time. I was thinking about you and Willie Mays and him being your idol. And I think about all the fans that Ron Say was their guy growing up. And you have a chance to interact with those fans. What does it mean to you to have that, to know that people feel the way that you felt about Willie Mays about you?
Pretty incredible, really. I don't really know how to say it any better than that. I'm grateful that I was able to, touch their lives in a way that they remembered me in that way. I came to work to play hard every single day. I grew up in a system, the Dodger history and tradition, which I felt was right up my alley because I wanted everything when I was a kid too. And most, you're going to find a lot of major league players who grew up doing the same thing. They were always winners, or they were the best player on their team or whatever. And now you throw all these guys in the same room and say, well, I wonder who's going to get through this. Where are you going to sit after this turns out, because you climbed to the pinnacle, now it's your top. Now, when you're down here on this level, this is Little League Baseball. And as you climb which I call here you're going up this ladder, the pyramid. And, now there's nothing but the cream of the crop left at the top. So how do you become better than those guys? Well, most of the time, there's not a whole lot separates one from the other physically. Guy runs well, he hits well, he throws well, he does this well. It's all here. This is what controls everything. And in order for you to have, a long, successful career, you have to try and pretty much figure things out. You've got to stay healthy. Which means that you need to have a regimen that keeps you there, and plus you have to perform. And everybody's going to have their ups and downs. But, I was able to eventually, through experience and time, minimize, I think, the times that I went, in the tank and return. And I'm very grateful for that. I worked very hard. I wasn't one of those, decathlon athletes that, can do everything. So it didn't come that easy. I had to work at my skill, just like Pete Rose. Pete wasn't the most gifted player, but Pete worked extremely hard. That's what I remember from him. And he was a gamer. Always came to play. He was gonna give you his best every single day. But I'm thrilled that I had, people that were baseball fans, Dodger fans, Penguin fans, whatever, that came my way. And I'm grateful that they enjoyed my career. And I always wanted to give something back to them. Always been grateful for their support. So yeah. Very, very grateful for all the support that I've had over the years.
Well, Ron, we can't thank you enough for all the time you've given us today. We really appreciate the conversation. This has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
This concludes today's presentation on behalf of Rainier Asphalt and Concrete and the Shanneman Sports Museum of Pierce County. I'd like to thank our guest, Ron Cey, one of the greatest third basemen in baseball history, no doubt about that, for appearing on today's show. This is Gary Hill. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Locker Room Chat. We'll see you next time.